Hi there, and welcome to the Chris and Garry Show. My name's Chris Scott. I'm joined with my partner in crime here, Garry Creath, and we're here to talk about all things real estate. We're actually here to talk about a very, very specific real estate related thing, which is these commission lawsuits and these NAR lawsuits. We've done a couple of videos recently about them, and they have gotten tremendous comments, both good and bad.
Yep.
We didn't been personally attacked, just sharing some information on this. Yeah, it's obviously a hot button topic, so we decided to do the best thing that we could, which is we're going to read comments from the internet on our NAR commission lawsuit videos that we've made in the past, and we're going to respond to them. Go ahead and take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment if you see fit. Let's go ahead and dive in. So Garry, the format today is I have our YouTube channel pulled up.
Okay.
And I'm specifically looking at the comments to two videos. One is the NAR lawsuit revisited with Rob Hahn. We had special guest, the notorious ROB, to talk about it. And we also did one before about the NAR lawsuit explained with just you and I. So I am looking at the comments. I'm just going to read the comments and let's go back and forth and see if we can answer them or respond to them.
Okay, let's do it.
So John says, I have a problem with how everyone is talking about this lawsuit. Who's bringing the lawsuit? You guys keep saying against NAR, RE/MAX, KW, but you don't say who's suing.
The Department of Justice.
Well, in this case, so let's look at it because each specific case is different, right?
Yeah.
So let's use the Morrell case.
Oh, the Morrell,
right?
okay.
So the person who stated in that case is a gentleman named Christopher Morrell. And Christopher Morrell is the one who is the initial plaintiff in that Morrell suit. And they are suing NAR and the MLSs and all the basically all the people with money. Now, it's not just Mr. Morrell that's doing it. It is actually the legal firms that have turned the single case into a class action lawsuit. So if you were to ask who is bringing the lawsuit, I would say it's legal firms because they see a really big opportunity to make good money on this, because real estate is, as you guys know, if you're industry insiders, real estate is a complicated process. A transaction is a complicated process to navigate. And with complication requires expertise and understanding. And so here's the thing. A lot of people don't know what goes into it. And so this is a prime thing to be able to rack up a bunch of legal fees and then have companies and organizations like NAR, RE/MAX, et cetera, settle. You know, Rob Hahn, when he was in the one episode of the Chris and Garry Show, he talked about this being a cash grab.
Yep.
Who's grabbing the cash? Because it won't be the plaintiffs, by the way. It's a class action lawsuit. No one's going to get, like every class action lawsuit I've been a part of, I get like $2.53.
They're going to get pennies on the dollar. Who's getting rich?
The legal companies, the legal firms that are suing.
Yep.
So
always follow the money trail.
Follow the money, because it actually does reveal an awful lot. And if you read the case documents, you're going to see that, it started with an individual, expanded into a class action. Who benefits from class action lawsuits? It's typically going to be legal firms.
Which is exactly what Ed says. The buyer is the only person at the closing table who brings a check. Everyone else leaves with one. This is a shell game, which may result in shuffling and massaging some language within the transactions. Consumers will benefit little, if any. Only the attorneys will be enriched.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree with that. I mean, even if you look at how some of the things have been shaping up, because, there were a few settlements that had taken place at the time of this recording. And, you might say, is the consumer really benefiting here? And how are they going to benefit? And one of the things that I noticed that was a little scary in the documents is there was a lot of assumption about how sellers will benefit. And the fact of the matter is they may not benefit from this, because they're assuming that if the seller doesn't pay the buyer's agent's fee, then therefore the seller will pay less. That's a big assumption. Because we don't understand. You remove that part of the equation, there's a bunch of reshuffling. To Ed's point, a bunch of reshuffling is going to happen. But ultimately, it's going to come down to this. What can and what will a buyer pay for a home? That's what it comes down to, because then they're the only ones putting out the money. Everything else gets reshuffled. So the price ultimately always in a free market gets pushed to what a buyer is willing and able to pay for a home.
You got it.
And so what happens after the fact, and even driving that, is going to be baked in all of these costs and all that stuff. So I think Ed's point is something to take to heart, is you follow the money to your point, and when you follow the money, the attorneys are enriched.
Where does it go?
Samantha says, could you discuss what the potential fallout the respective MLSs will have? This is more speculative, right?
Okay, so let's go worst case scenario. Potential fallout. Bankruptcy. They shut down and they disappear.
That's worst case.
That's worst case. It could happen.
And then not best case necessarily, but the opposite of that is nothing changes. And that means, is it likely that something lands in the middle there?
It's probably something in the middle. I think what I've seen so far is, a couple of the defendants have already settled. The settlements have not gone through yet. They've agreed on a settlement, but it still has to be accepted by the courts. But NAR has come forth and said, we are not settling. No. We are fighting this. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with that and subsequent lawsuits. One thing Rob Hahn said is that this could turn into a major shakedown with copycat lawsuits. So, if that happens and then every single small MLS across the country gets sued by all these lawyers. So then what happens? Well, worst case, they shut them all down, or maybe somebody comes in and gobbles them up as a conglomerate and shifts things around. We have no idea.
Let me ask you a question. This is purely like doomsday speculation, right? But let's say, just for the sake of argument here, let's say the MLS shut down tomorrow, but people still need to buy and sell real estate.
Yes, they do.
What would you do tomorrow if there was no MLS? What would you do?
Oof. You know what? What would I do? I would immediately start contacting all of my clients, educating them about what is happening, and letting them know that it will be business as usual because I have a network and a relationship with the other realtors in town who have buyers and sellers. And so what I think would happen is we would start our own little community.
Well, it's like on Facebook. You're already a part of a bunch of Facebook groups with other agents who share, hey, I got a buyer who's looking for this. I got a seller who's got this, right?
So what happens then? I don't know. Maybe realtors create our own MLS. That's entirely possible. So if it's shut down tomorrow, I would get on the phone and call every single realtor I've done business with in the past and say, hey, want to let you know, I'm going to be sending you, as soon as I get listings, I'm going to send you the information of the listings that I have. So if you have buyers, contact me immediately. We will become our own MLS.
All right, let's look at Virginia says, great conversation, made a lot of great points. Hopefully this will weed out the uneducated agents and both buyers and sellers get better representation with more quality realtors.
Well, first, I think this makes a lot of assumptions. First and foremost, weeding out uneducated agents. Do I see that happening? Not really. Because here's what happens. That happens cyclically when dues and fees come up, right? Because the agents who are not making the money actually don't have the education necessary in order to properly represent somebody. Because if there's a year or two that goes between transactions, you're not really primed and ready to take care of clients. That's one side of the equation. The other side actually is something that is not being addressed in any of this, and that is education and knowledge of real estate agents getting into the business and having a strong barrier to entry. That has absolutely nothing to do with NAR, the MLSs, any boards. What that has to do with is local state legislation and the real estate commission. So if we want to, if we really want to take care of making sure that only educated, really well, very knowledgeable realtors enter the business, well, that has to happen somewhere else.
Well, and to reverse that, I think that the low barrier to entry is what makes real estate a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
I mean, hard work is involved to be successful, without a doubt, right? Like real estate is not an easy business to thrive in, but when you learn how to, it's a great business to be in. And so I think the fact that the barriers to entry are low is actually part of what makes real estate great. Now, from a consumer's perspective, we just have to get really good at articulating our value, which has always been true. These lawsuits have nothing to do with the fact that we've always needed to articulate our value. In fact, one might say that part of the reasons these lawsuits came about is because so many of us aren't good at articulating our value and explaining to sellers and working with buyers and explaining how this all operates. And so, I think, we did that one video with Rob Hahn, and he was saying, I'm not worried about the good agents. The good agents always figure things out.
Yep.
And, for most of you, you're good agents. You're going to figure this out. You don't need to be afraid. Okay, because you're going to figure things out. Now, if you're horrible at articulating your value and you're basically just skimming off the top opportunity, then you might want to start brushing up on those skills. I mean, even if you're a new agent, here's the good news is that these are all skills that can be acquired, right? So like, what are some ways to hedge our bets? Well, get good at articulating our value, proving your value as a real estate professional. Another one might be to focus on getting more listings, right? Like if you're a listing agent, you're probably less concerned about all of this, right?
Yep.
As a listing agent, do you see like a silver lining to it? Meaning that, well, maybe I'll end up working with more buyers as well.
Well, I do see that, and I do think that this very well could implement more of an old age way of selling real estate. And this is part of the problem, is that what these lawsuits could potentially do is de-evolve real estate back to the old ways, where we do double end a lot of transactions because the data is not being shared. We do double end because buyers are coming directly to the listing agent. So that's absolutely something that I think we all need to be aware of.
Here's a good one. Wendy says, one thought as a listing agent, I can still offer compensations to a buyer's agent, even if it turns out the buyers are paying for their own agent. So other agents can have the conversation with buyers, you will pay me X, but if we can find a house where the compensation is offered by the seller, then you won't have to. Guess which house the buyer may buy first? Unfair competition? She's talking about the episode that we did with Rob Hahn. But like all of a sudden, when you like what Wendy did, you get into this nitty gritty of like, well, how would I language this? Right? What will be my processes now? How am I going to, what is my contract going to look like? You start navigating those details, and like she says, got to be strategic about it. Oh. There may be opportunities here to serve or to.
That's what I'm thinking. Is like, I love that comment because she's already thinking as an opportunist and focused on abundance, not on fear. So as we focus on what is the opportunity here, I actually have an opportunity to compete better for my sellers, to offer different compensation to attract buyers to these homes. I have different ways to have value propositions with all of my customers. And the more we can be strategic about that and opportunistic, I think the better it's going to be for everybody, instead of sitting back in fear and going, oh my gosh, what is it? The sky is falling. No, it's not falling. What's happening is a lot of people think it is. And when other people think the sky is falling, that's when you go in and you grab market share.
This is also an opportunity to educate our own clients about the value that we bring to the table.
Oh, great idea.
Right?
Yeah.
And this, which is something we should be doing all the time anyway. It's a good reminder, though, that we should be doing a better job of explaining, here's what we do, here's how this process works. I hate to pick on you about the listings that you have lost, but there was a time, and you had a friend that you literally played poker with every week.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
And you lost that listing opportunity. And the reason you lost it was because he didn't know you do a bunch of online marketing, and that's what he was looking for. Yeah. He ended up hiring somebody else. Yeah. And you told me that you realized it was your own fault that he didn't understand that you do online marketing. Why is that?
Because I didn't tell him. I never educated him. It was a lack of education. I assumed that he knew what I did for a living. We were like very, very close friends. And I assumed that he knew, I knew his market. I knew his neighborhood. I knew his house. I knew what it was worth. I even went to his house for a listing appointment that I cut short because I was like, hey, you want to go out on the boat instead? Let's talk about this on the boat. So we did that instead of me taking it like a professional. And, what I should have done is shown up in a suit and tie and treated it like a real listing opportunity rather than an assumption that I was going to get it.
And here's the thing. We are responsible for educating our clients, right? You don't want your competition to do it. You definitely don't want national media doing it, right? Like, we have to educate our clients about all of it. And so education, though, becomes an opportunity because through education, you become an expert. You become an authority. You're providing value through education, through expertise and knowledge that you have. So always be looking for opportunities to articulate and clarify your value. Michelle has a good one here. She says, this is a little tongue-in-cheek here, but I love the dirty laundry of our industry being aired. It's about time. I've heard discussions of agents openly admitting steering and not being smart enough to admit that they are unethical. We had a realtor day at the Austin, Texas Capitol, and NAR is just trying to continue to wave their flag of authority of agents. Being there made me kind of sick, seeing realtors go blindly guided on issues they knew nothing about and being there for the ride. Good realtors need to wake up.
That's not exactly what she
no,
said,
she added some expletives there, but the good ones are awake, but the bad ones will continue to follow blindly and be derailed. So by being your own individual broker, we stop offering compensation. So I'm confused if we are now salaried. That's not happening. So,
there's been a lot of talk about that, about salaried realtors and non-salaried, blah, 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 blah.
And then the Redfin model was that, right?
And you know what? Things come and go, ebbs and flows. But I do like her point of being involved and having knowledge about what is actually happening in your industry. This is your industry. This is my industry. This is our industry. And so how do we combat what's happening with knowledge? She had a great point there. Good realtors are awake. Yes. And that's why the good ones who are awake, who are educated, who are knowledgeable, who are focused on taking care of their customers with that as a background, they're the ones who make 90% of the money, but it's only 10% of the realtors. So 90%, yes, time to wake the up.
Well, the way I see it is, for so many people, this lawsuit is it's almost like talking about politics. And why is that? Well, it's because, like, oftentimes that in areas where it's what do you call that? Polarized, is you're only looking at like a one slice of the reality and then building a case around that one slice.
Right.
And that's happening in this particular lawsuit. And there's actually multiple lawsuits, which adds a little bit to the confusion. And there's conversations about everything about lock boxes to the antitrust acts. I mean, this is complicated and confusing. And all of a sudden, whenever you have something that's complicated and confusing, you have these triggers because anything we're triggered about might actually be part of our own understanding. It might be a signal to us to say, maybe I should research that a little bit. A great example is how many people who are commenting about these lawsuits have actually read the case documents, right? I mean, they're available. They're online. They're not that hard to read. They're not easy to read, but they're also not terribly hard to read. And so you can start to read them and get your own assessments on what's taking place there. When I read the case statements, what I was not the word impressed is not the word I'm looking for. Surprised, I guess, is just how much assumption is built into the plaintiff's case. And I imagine there's a lot of assumption built on the defense case as well. However, when you think about all these assumptions, well, they're not all going to be true. In fact, probably more of them false than true.
And I think that's why NAR is fighting is they look at that and they're like,
there's so much assumption.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true.
I think to close, Gary, is let's not get caught up in what the triggering points of these cases are. I think the thing that's most important is that we consider the range of possibilities and prepare for the most likely ones, not necessarily the extreme ones, because the extreme ones we probably can't prepare for. Like the end of real estate, we can't really prepare for that. Other than maybe go get a job, and I wouldn't suggest that you do that. No, we need to prepare for the most likely things to take place. And so, being able to focus on how do I articulate my value? That's going to be something that is timeless. It's a timeless principle in real estate, is that you should get good at proving your value. Another thing is, few problems seem to not get solved with a few extra listings these days, Gary.
Man, so, I love that is I think we're focused so much on the wrong things. I do think it's very important to be educated, understand what's going on, but then get back to work.
Well, you know what's going on so that you can prepare, right? That's really what it comes down to. What should I be doing to prepare? And, there's only so much you can do to prepare. The fact of the matter is you still got a real estate practice to run until any of this stuff shakes out. So, get good at articulating your value, maybe focusing on getting more listings. How about this one, right? The more trust that you build with your clients, your contacts, your connections, the people in your local marketplace, right? Who are they going to trust as their voice of reason as all of this shakes out? Well, if you're the voice of reason in your marketplace, they're going to look to you to find answers, not the media, not the person who's just spouting off online. They want to go to people they can trust, and that should be us. That should be you.
And that will be you. Just make sure that you keep learning, stay educated, and keep your head down too. By the way, another really important thing you could do is click the like button and subscribe to our channel, because if you like this one, we got more coming to you. So stay tuned, and we will see you on the next episode.
See you online.